Hey guys, thanks for joining me for the second installment of story time about soloing the Baja 1000. If you haven't watched the first one, I'll put a link in the description here. Definitely check that out. It kind of sets the tone for all this. This is going to be a 4-part series, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Here we go.
Dirt bikes! We get back from the 2005 race, and we're going, that's November. We're going through life. Sometime in early spring, my wife says, I'm pregnant with our first child. And of course, there's huge, happy emotion. We're stoked, right? I mean, we were ready to have kids. As ready as you can ever possibly be to have children. But I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And so we go to the doctor, we figure out the possible due date, and it's August. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, what? And I'm like, well, so he's going to be like 3 months old when I go to Mexico to race the 1,000 solo. And my wife looks at me, he's like, really? You're still going to do that? I'm like, well, yeah, I already bought the motorcycle. She's like, I'm like, well, he can come. Well, actually, I'm like, the baby can come, because we didn't know. We actually didn't know it was going to be a boy. We waited to find out until he was born. So, I'm like, well, the baby can come to Mexico. It's like, when the baby's 3 months old, I'm not going to Mexico with a baby. I'm like, oh, that's probably a good idea. Probably shouldn't do that. It's like, no, we shouldn't do that. So, I'm like, but yeah, we're going to, and she's like, okay. And so, you got to understand, my wife, if you've watched the other Storytime video, you know she's a saint. Like, a huge saint. And actually, I got lots more stories to prove her sainthood. But, so she agrees, whatever. I can't even believe it. So I'm going to leave my wife and new baby to go race the Baja 1000 solo. Yeah, anyway, so it's crazy. So anyway, that year goes along. I stay in touch with Bob. As we're getting closer to the time of the race, I'm prepping the bike now. I've got all the tips from him. So I replaced every bearing on the entire chassis. I don't do anything to the motor because the motors are really good, and I just didn't have the money. I get my lights set up. I get I'm just doing everything he tells me to do. And then I've talked to Fritz. I'm working for Fritz now. Left Sun Sports. I'm working for Fritz. And I tell Fritz I'm going to race the Baja 1000. He kind of laughs at me because he knows Larry Rossler. He's a much better rider and racer than I am, or ever will be. And he's like, okay, fine. And I'm like, that's going to be awesome. So I continue to prep, and I get some time off. And so here's the funny thing. I'm like, all right, Fritz, I need a week off for pre-running and racing. He's like, okay, sounds good. So I scheduled a week off. The week prior to the 1,000, it always starts on a Friday night, 1,000 always starts usually on a Friday and runs through the weekend, and especially when it's a point-to-point. So I just get the whole week off. I figure I'll leave Saturday, drive down there. I'll pre-run the first part of it, get ready to go. I've gotten some friends talked into coming with me. I don't have any money to help pay for anything for them, so they're all just paying their own way, and just out of the goodness of their heart. I cannot believe that they did this. Although it was a pretty fun vacation. So I've got this group of guys. We're gonna go down there. 2 of them are gonna meet us later, in their own truck. My other buddy Jeff's gonna come with me in my truck and a trailer. We're gonna go down. I didn't have this van yet, so we, it's probably 2 weeks out from the thing, or 3 weeks out probably. And I call Bob. I'm like, hey Bob, we're gonna head down and pre-run the first 100 and so miles of it, and then blah blah blah. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, so we're gonna come down. I figure I'll do the first 150 miles pre-run to get that kind of baby dialed in, and then it is what it is after that. He's like, you're an idiot. You're an absolute moron. You got to pre-run the whole thing. You got to know what's coming. You got to know the turns. I'm like, dude, I can't do that. I don't have time. He's like, you got to find time. I'm like, well, I work. I don't have any money. He's like, I don't care what you're doing. If you already entered this race, you are coming. And so I go talk to Fritz because he doesn't really care. It's just one less mouth to feed for him, financially, with me gone in the winter or fall. So I talked to my wife. She's like, well, if it's the, that's the thing you got to do. You got to do it. I'm like, okay. So now I got to accelerate my preparation for the thing. I had been working on the bike, but now I don't have much time. So, all right. So I'm getting the thing ready. I get it all done, and I pack up, and I go. Of course, my friends, like I said, who were going to come down with us, now they got to come by themselves. I got to leave a week early to meet Bob and his friends. And now they're going to come a week later. They're going to come down later, which is fine, but they're planning on driving anyway, but it definitely threw a wrench into their situation. So we're driving down there. I get there, at night to the hotel, and I don't know. I've never been to Ensenada. I don't know anything. And I get there. I get to the hotel. They have a room for me, which is really nice for my buddies and I. And I pull in. It's late. I'm like, okay, great. We're there. And Bob comes over. He's like, hey, Morgan, good to see you. We're starting pre-running tomorrow at 6:30. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So next morning, 6:30 comes. I'm ready to go, and out walks this woman with everybody, and I'm like, I don't think much of it, but I'm a little bit surprised. And then Bob comes over. He's like, hey, Morgan, this is Anna Cody. She's soloing too. She's pre-running with us. Okay, nice to meet you. Shake your hand. I'm like, oh my gosh, who is this woman? I feel like I'm a moron, but I don't even know what's going on. And she's all decked out, full Honda gear, looks legit. And she's on an old factory Honda XR650. And you can tell it had a different pipe on it that you can't buy. All this stuff. I'm like, what is going on? So we take off. Oh, and by the way, I'm pre-running on a borrowed XR400. A buddy of mine was like, yeah, you can borrow my XR400 to pre-run on. So I borrowed an XR400 from my friend. So let me back up again. So as I'm talking to Bob about going down and pre-run this whole thing, he's like, what are you pre-running on? I'm like, well, my XR650. He's like, no, you can't pre-run on the bike you're racing on. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't have another motorcycle, but I can't. I've got a WR250, but I can't pre-run on that. I don't have anything. It's not set up for it. The gearing's wrong. All that stuff. He's like, dude, you got to find something else to pre-run on. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I call a friend of mine who's got an XR400. I'm like, hey, Corey, can I borrow your XR400 and pre-run the Baja 1000 on it? He's like, sure. So my buddy lets me borrow his bike. I take it down there, I got seriously no idea what I'm doing. So there we go. So it's the morning of the first day of pre-run, and we take off. We're heading out, and we're going down the road, and everybody's like, all right, we're going to skip this first section because it's just an easy wash. It's no big deal. It's just a road down, and you don't need to worry about it, but we're just going to get down the road and go. And my other friend is just chasing. He's going to meet us in the next town. He doesn't know. He's never been to Mexico before in his life. He's just following other chase trucks. He has no idea what's going on. And I'm like, okay. So we get out. We get on the road, and everybody else, literally everybody else in our group of pre-runners is on an XR650, and then I'm on a 400. And they all get out on the road, and boom, gone. I'm on the 400. Click, click, click. Top gear. It not even coming close to keeping up. They're out. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm back there. And fortunately, they all wait for me at the first turn. We get on. We go. And we get down to San Felipe. And my buddies are like, you got to carry gas on your back because we're going all the way to Bay of LA today. And we don't know if the gas station in Gonzaga has any gas, because there's been a hurricane and the road's out, and I don't think they got the gas truck in there. So we need to stop here in San Felipe, the last town for sure that has gas, and you need to load up on gas in your backpack. Okay, but I don't have any way to carry gas. I didn't bring a way to. I didn't know. So we, no joke, we go looking around the streets of San Felipe, and we find 2 1-gallon antifreeze jugs just laying in the street, trash, but they still have caps on them. And we take a plastic bag, cut that out, and like make a seal for it, fill them up with gas, chuck them into my backpack. We leave San Felipe. Bob guides us down to the old Puertecitos Road. And if you know what that road is, then you know what's coming. And he's like, all right, you guys go down this way. I'm going to take the road around. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm not going down that road. I'm like, what? Why? And Anna looks at me. She's like, oh. I'm like, what's down this road that you don't want to do? He's like, you'll have fun. So he's like, that's the race course, though. You got to do that. I'm like, okay. So we take off down the old Puertecitos Road. And to say it's 30 miles of loops is the understatement of the century. It is 30 miles of loops, but it is the most hateful, godforsaken piece of dirt on earth. It is 30 straight miles of rock, sand, dirt, and the most uneven, unforgiving loops you have ever seen in your entire life. I cannot stress how miserable the old Puertecitos Road is. I mean, I don't care what suspension you have, unless you are a pro racer or just a super duper amazing rider. That thing, and even if you are, it sucks because the whoops are from buggies and trucks. They're not from motorcycles, so they're spaced. They're huge. They're huge, and so we go down the old Puertecitos Road. Gas, by the way, is coming out of these jugs and spilling onto my back and basically ruining my life. It's like eating the skin off my back. The Mexican, any gas would, but the Mexican gas, the Pemex gas is really bad. So it's just like eating my back. It's just horrific. Of course, finally I get far enough to pour one of them in. Pour that in. And then we go. Okay, we get back out on the road. There's Bob waiting on the pavement for us with a big smile on his face. I'm like, that was miserable. Anna's miserable. We're all like, this sucks. So we go on. Anyway, we pre-run. We go down. We get to Cocos Corner. And, of course, seeing the dust of glory, I know what Cocos Corner is. And we've also met up with our other friends, this guy Richard Jackson and some other guys who skipped the old Puertecitos Road. And we go into Cocos Corner and we pull up. And Richard gets off his bike and he's like, Coco! And Coco's like, hey, Richard! They totally know each other. They're friends. Tons of stories they're telling. It's amazing. Like, I get to meet and hang out with Coco on a cool level. A level that that guy's nice to everyone, by the way. Like, he is nice to everyone. And acts like he knows everyone, which is super cool. But it was just cool because we got to sit down and Richard and Coco got to reminisce about the time Coco watched Richard's kids. Like, babysat them when he was down there racing one time, back before Coco had his land out there. He was still being a valet in Ensenada, and it was just awesome, super cool experience. So we go on down, get to the Bay of LA, we hang out, and we keep pre-running, and I keep getting my butt kicked by this woman, and she is, I mean, flying on this XR650. And I asked her about the bike because it's kind of hammered looking, but it definitely factory stuff on it. And she explains to me, she's like, oh, that's my brother Quinn's old bike from when he was, a couple of years ago racing. I'm like, oh, and it's Quinn Cody. He's like the freaking, I don't know, he's won the 1,000 multiple times. I don't know how many times, 4 or 5. I'm sure someone here knows exactly how many times. And if Anna's watching, she definitely knows. You can comment below, but it's Quinn's old bike, practice bike, and pre-run bike, and the thing is wicked. I mean, I said it's rough looking because he beat on it, but it was just amazing and stupid fast. So we go and we're like continue pre-running. We have crazy moments during the pre-run, but not like after the first day, it's kind of, everything was working fine and good. And I'll just kind of highlight some of the things that happened. So one day we're going, it took us 4 days to pre-run the whole 1,000. We just took it easy, kind of get a lay of the land, figure things out. And I remember one day we were going along and I was feeling good. I was riding pretty well. I was like, okay, we're good. Everything's good. And I'm charging and I'm out in front of everybody. They're all kind of just relaxing, whatever. And I'm out in front. And I'm like, oh man, I got this whole Baja racing thing down. Through these trees and cactus and super fun kind of soft sand section. And I figure, oh, I'm going to wick it up because I got this covered. So I start going pretty fast, I mean for me, and I'm going along and I come around the turn and there's all these rocks. I'm like, ah! And I hit them and I'm completely out of control. I hit them, boop, 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 up on the front wheel. Oh, no.
I know you want to see the rest of it. It's coming. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you'll make sure that you get all the videos as they come up. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it, guys. It means a lot to me. I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you get out and spread the gospel of two wheels. And I really hope you find some time to ride your dirt bikes!